YouTube.com/DJ Diamond K. Of course, on all social media, I am at the Diamond K Show. So today we have the verdict in the trial of the teenage Squeegee kid that was charged with the killing of a man. The jury came in, and Tavon Scott is the young man's name. The jury for the trial of this teenager has ended, 16 years old now. Convicted of voluntary manslaughter and 2 handgun charges. Faces a maximum sentence of 35 years in prison. With a combined of those charges. So voluntary manslaughter is defined as the killing of an individual in the heat of passion in response to a legally adequate provocation. The jury had considered first and second degree murder charges, but settled on voluntary manslaughter. So that is where we are. The teenager, the child, has not been sentenced as of yet. That's going to happen at a later date. I don't know how I feel about this. There was a lot going on with regards to this trial. Happened in downtown Baltimore. We talked about the juror that was sick yesterday. The defense asked for delayed sentencing in order to fully utilize the juvenile psychiatrist in preparation for what he is going to face. He avoided first and second degree murder convictions. He has been convicted of manslaughter. This is a serious thing for this young man. We have to keep in mind that someone did lose their life. And defense attorney for the teenager, Mr. Scott, the defense attorney, Warren Brown, spoke to the media just after things went down.
Big question is why this gentleman came across 8 lanes of traffic swinging a bat at these kids, right? I mean, there was something that went on in his past in relationship to these Squeegee kids. And so the whole focus of the state's case has been on these Squeegee kids, and nobody's really looked into the relationship of Mr. Reynolds with Squeegee kids at that corner in the past that I think generated such a feverish effort to get across that street with that bat and to, in fact, swing at these kids before he's shot.
I think your side scored a big point today with the fingerprint evidence. The man who allegedly owned the backpack, his fingerprints were found at the scene. That must have felt good.
Well, it was interesting for the detective to conclude that that all these kids knew what was in this bag. And that just kind of reflected, I think, that, he was very biased and not objective in his evaluation of the evidence and in his collecting of the evidence. I think it's very important that they get evidence of what happened when he parked across the street and how he in a determined fashion came back across the street to approach these kids. I mean, who does that? There's a reason for it. And they refused to really look into that. Their focus was only on the kids. So the video is all on the kids. Everything is all on the kids. And so I think that the jury will come to understand, especially in closing, that the state is falling short of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that this boy, if he's the shooter, was not acting in defense of himself or defense of others. The evidence is that the man Reynolds swung the bat at a kid before shots fired. And as the detective indicated, a bat is a deadly weapon, and and certainly you have the right to defend yourself with the use of deadly force against someone who comes at you with deadly force. And so that the detective clearly established that this was a deadly weapon, that Mr. Reynolds came across 8 lanes of traffic, angrily approached these kids and went after them. And so the hurdle for the state is, one, proving beyond a reasonable doubt that this young man fired the shot, and then if they do, then proving that he was not acting. And beyond a reasonable doubt, they have to prove he wasn't acting in defense of himself or others, and the evidence shows he was. Absolutely, he was. He wasn't. This man wasn't shot until after that bat was swung, and one or more of the kids, and one or more of the kids was hit by the bat.
What was the suggestion with the tattoos? Your colleague mentioned a tattoo.
Yeah.
It was an X-Men insignia, said mutant but proud, suggesting it was a proud boy.
Well,
suggesting race.
yeah. Now, I don't think so. Not in that regard. I just think he's been inquisitive.
Are you saying that he was a racist?
No. I wouldn't accuse him of being a racist.
What did he mean when he asked him if he was a proud boy then?
Oh, I think he was just trying to get clarity on that word "proud" that was tattooed on his neck. I don't know anything about the man's background. I wouldn't say for 1 second that he's a racist or anything like that. I mean, heck, you got a lot of black folk that get irritated by the Squeegee kids, right? It's just not too many folk that are going to get out of their car, come across, transverse 8 lanes of traffic and come at these kids with a gun. And let's face it, in Baltimore City, you should assume that a large group of kids, there's a gun there somewhere. And it's a shame that that's the case. It wasn't always the case. I've been doing this for 35 years, and 90% of my cases, much like other criminal defense attorneys, involves a gun. So, but in terms of that proud, I don't know what that was all about. I just think it was inquiring about it. But hatred as is an ally or something, that's kind of bizarre. I mean, most people don't want to be associated with hatred.
Are you suggesting that his supposed anger, was fueled by racism?
No, not at all. I think his anger was fueled by earlier bad contact with these kids, with some kids at that very location. His Twitter, and that's why I got on the detective. You didn't even check his Twitter. You would have found out why he was angry at these kids on this corner. He had a bad contact with them. So, no, not at all. I'm not saying he's racist at all.
Thank you.
That was Warren Brown, the defense attorney for the Squeegee kid, who has been convicted of voluntary manslaughter in addition to 2 handgun charges. The young man is facing a maximum of 35 years. He's 16 years old. Attorney Brown said that the defense is preparing to present reports detailing the teenager's mindset. Scott, the teenager, was accused of killing 48-year-old Timothy Reynolds last summer. Scott was squeegeeing windows at the intersection of Light and Conway Street in downtown Baltimore when Timothy Reynolds got out of his car and chased him with the bat, swinging and hitting some of the folks outside. Through Vignaraja is the attorney representing the victim's family, and said that the verdict brings them a measure of justice and a measure of closure.
What is the family's reaction to the defense alluding to racism?
Yeah, I mean, the tactics the defense is resorting to are desperate and a little pathetic. I mean, we're talking about tattoos of comic book characters and video games, of references to his favorite movies and his favorite sports teams. If this is what the defense has got left in the tank, the family's got to feel good that there's no credible defense that's coming forward.
How do you feel about the case presented so far by the Constitution?
Look, the fact that the defense can't even seem to decide whether they're going to say he wasn't there or that he was there and he was afraid for his life, it's just it's a tough spot to be in if you're a defense attorney. You can't even figure out what your defense is. Conversely, I think the detectives and the other witnesses have put such a clear account, which is in the videos, right? I mean, you heard the detective say the videos speak for themselves. You can see the victim walking away. You can see the defendant stepping away and pulling down that mask. You can see the perpetrator and his accomplices following the victim as he's leaving, surrounding him and shooting him 5 times, 3 times in the back. So when you have, the autopsy reports, when you have the video, I think this kind of pathetic distraction tactic of trying to accuse and villainize the victim, it seems particularly desperate and pathetic in a case of such seriousness.
And how powerful was the autopsy testimony when they go through the wounds, and 3 of them, as you said, were in his back?
I mean, for so long, the public was told that this was self-defense. You don't pull down a mask and then shoot a guy 3 times in the back and get to claim self-defense. And that is undisputed, right? It's not like there's a ricochet theory or something. I mean, it is undisputed that he was shot 5 times, 5 casings, 3 bullets in the back. That kind of evidence is really hard for the distraction and theatric tactics to work against.
And how confident does the family feel about a conviction?
Look, the family knows that trials are roller coasters. They know that the facts and the law have to come in fits and starts, but at the end of the day, they remain hopeful and confident that when all the facts and all the law are before the jury, that this jury will render justice.
Are there any concerns that it's still so hard to hear, especially the prosecutor? I mean, I know, it's just such a high stakes trial. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Look, acoustics in these old courtrooms is always a source of frustration. There is some good news, which is the jury, I hope, can hear better than we can out here in the audience. But everybody's got to project their voice. I mean, and it's frustrating for the audience, but the jury's been good about indicating when they need to see something again, hear something again, and when they go back in that deliberation room, they'll have all of the evidence in front of them. They can watch it over and over again. They can ask for testimony to be read back. There's things like that.
And what do you think about some of the perceived intimidation tactics? Even today, Jay Gordon going all the way over to the other side of the room to get somebody to speak up, speak loudly. Yesterday, he was rebuked several times for being outlandish. What do you think? Do you think the judge has been forceful enough to stop that kind of conduct?
Look, this is par for the course for defense attorneys who don't have a defense. And what you've seen over the course of this week is they can't even figure out whether they want to claim he wasn't there or whether they want to claim self-defense. And so the kinds of theatrics and tactics that the defense attorney, it's just a signal that they don't have anything more to say. I think that's good news from the family's perspective. But at the end of the day, we're just hopeful that the evidence and the law is becoming crystal clear to the jury and that they will deliver a measure of justice for this family.
All right, thank you. I don't want
to... through Vignaraja, he represents the family of the victim, and he was speaking today outside of the courtroom. This case has been one of those. Timothy Reynolds' sister, Rebecca, and the family was outside of the Mitchell courthouse after the verdict was read. As I said, just tuning in, 16-year-old Tavon Young, Squeegee kid, was found guilty of voluntary manslaughter in the death of Timothy Reynolds. So it looks like this case is it's moved to the next phase. Sentencing will be soon, and we'll talk about that at that time. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok at The Diamond K Show. Of course, onfire-tv.com is where you go. On Facebook, we are On Fire Television. On YouTube, DJ Diamond K. And so I definitely wanted this to go another way. But it is what it is. And the jury has spoken.